Hello, my name is Justin, and today I'll be creating a planted 45-gallon aquarium. What is it? Before I do that, we have to first understand what a planted aquarium or aquascape is. An aquascape is basically the ability to create a natural escape. This form of scaping was first used by Dutch aquascapers, the origins of which date back to 1930s. A classic aquascape often uses rocks like lava rock, plants that will create a jungle-like appearance, and of course driftwood, which is just normal wood but has been submerged and has started to rot. This driftwood will help add tannins into the water, which will soften the water as it adds more acidity into it. In week 1, I decided to pick up some of the wood that I had left over back in December. As I said before, this is not actually the first time I've thought of doing this project, but sadly, because of work and other things, I've never got the chance to get started. But now that I do have time to do this project, I started putting together the driftwood I will need for the tank. This will help with water hardness. The more wood means more acidity in water, which in turn can soften the water. Here you can see I've placed driftwood in the corners. This will increase the swimming space for the fish later on, though I ended up taking out one of them to replace with a trunk I had on hand. In week 3, I finally got the ideal escape I wanted, and now I'll be using super glue to glue the wood into place so that it won't float. As some of you probably know, wood has holes in it which make it buoyant, but if you soak it over time, it will end up sinking. Knowing this, I'll be gluing it onto some rocks that will hold it in place. Side note, if you're ever going to plan to do this aquascape, make sure to use Gorilla Super Glue Gel, as it's one of the only glues that won't contaminate the water. The reason you can see me here using tissue paper to hold the rocks and the wood together is because if you end up wanting to change the layout after you've glued it, you don't have to remove the rock directly from the wood, but rather you can just rip off the tissue paper to separate them. Now I'll be doing this to all of the other rocks. Here I have a cup of tiny pebbles, and I will scatter these around the larger rocks. This is because in a real river system, you may often find smaller rocks being pushed against something larger. This is because oftentimes the current of the water pushes these small pebbles down. So to simulate that, I'll be adding them manually. This is a hang on the back filter. It is called this because you hang this on the back of a tank, and it filters the water. Here I am adding some of the filter media in the cartridges. This first stage is a sponge. This will help trap all the large floating debris. The second layer is the activated carbon. This will help remove any fine debris. And finally, the last layer will be coral chunks. This helps to get rid of any remaining debris not trapped by the other two layers. Now we can hang it on the tank. In week 4, I decided to pick up some plants. This plant is called Vallisneria. As you can see, when you buy this, it will come in clumps and wrapped with cotton. You can then pull them apart gently. Then plant them into substrate a few centimeters apart from each other. Here I have a 10-gallon tank on the side to solely keep and grow plants. Now I'll plant some into the substrate to show you. As you can see here, I have so many that I still have left over. The good thing is that you can just keep them floating as they don't need substrate to live. Though the only thing you have to watch out for is that you have to throw them into the tank, or else it's not a real fish tank setup experience. In week 9, as you can see, I bought some new plants. These include an assortment of Java Fern and Java Fern Mini. What's the difference, you might ask? Well, Java Fern is just a normal Java Fern, and Java Fern Mini is just mini. Anyways, now I'll be getting them out of the pot. As you can see here, you'll be first taking the fern out of the pot, then taking off the rock wool, which is just a cotton-like material that better holds beneficial bacteria. It took me quite a while to do this, so I sped it up as you can see. Now that I've got them all out, I'll be putting them into the tank. Also, it has not been exactly 9 weeks, but around the 9-week mark, so the Vallisneria has fully grown in. Now we can toss the Java Fern in. You can see here that a Java Fern Mini has already started to send off a baby. And from this view, you can clearly see the sheer size difference between the two. Just look how massive the Java Fern is compared to the Mini. Here you can see I have an assortment of plants. As I explained before, this is Java Fern. And next to it is Java Fern Mini. But this is Cryptocoryne flamingo. Why flamingo, you might ask? Well, it's because it looks like one. Well, not in shape, but in color. When it gets sunlight, it will become pinkish like a flamingo. In week 10, the plants have seemed to fully adapt into being underwater. Now I can start planting into the aquarium. Of course, I'll be using aquarium-safe super glue to glue the plants onto the wood. Note, if you are scared of the glue killing the plants, well, don't worry, as it is highly unlikely, and also the glue will go away after a few months, when the plant has fully settled onto the driftwood. Again, if you're going to make your own aquascape, you could also just simply use string and tie it down to the driftwood. This will be tied around the wood to hold in the plants. Of course, this will take much longer than super glue for the plants to hold onto the wood, as this could take around a month or 2. Now let's fill her up. As you can see in the last clip, the wood started floating. This was bad on my part as I failed to put into account that the wood would start to float that much. Well, there isn't much I can do now. At this point, I was completely crushed. I put so much effort into this project and I have just failed. This took a crazy toll on my mental health and of course, my wallet. All jokes aside though, the most important thing to understand is that oftentimes we can't change what has already been done, and we just have to live with the consequences. So just sitting around won't help what's wrong. So let's get back to work. It's week 11 and I have 2 weeks left to finish this project. And with that, the driftwood still hasn't sunk. I went to crazy lengths to help it sink, including holding it down with a brick. This does help it sink a bit, but I fear if I don't get it to sink in time, I could have to come out empty-handed. It's a day after the driftwood has sunk, and I planted the plants yesterday. They seem to be holding up just fine, and I'll soon be adding the Vallisneria. The day has come. This recording is actually just 3 days before the due date, so if I sound rushed, you know why. I did end up having time to put in the Vallisneria, but sadly I didn't get a chance to record myself planting it in because I was really rushed between editing and recording and voiceovers. So I just did it without recording. Anyways, enough of the talking. Let's get to the big reveal. That brings an end to my presentation, but before I really end my presentation, I would like to ask you a question. Did you like this presentation? And if you did, do you have any further questions about the process of setting up Escape?